Okay, we are young and wild and free. Um, we are going on the FilmGamer podcast, and I have not even checked what episode this is or done my homework. I'm just really trying to go by the seat of my pants, so forgive me. I realized I can just upload all one file, and we'll see how it goes. A lot has happened in the last week for me in the digital movie space. I believe this is episode 5 of season 5, number 55. And if I check my Spotify, which so annoyingly you add to the queue, and then something happens, and then something doesn't happen, and the queue gets erased. Right now, I'm listening to the Rewatchables Die Hard with Vengeance podcast. But yeah, it's very, very annoying. Yeah, my last episode was 53. So am I to correct that 54 never uploaded, or maybe I never did it in the first place? Really gaslighting myself here. Has it really been since the materialists? Well, if we look at, let's see here, creators, blah, 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 that was my most recent episode. So, wow, in the past time, I have seen 28 years later, I have seen F1. And I'm going to see Jurassic World Rebirth sometime in the next week. So we'll see how it turns out. Okay, let's get down to the box office here, because this is season 5, episode 4, number 54 overall. And I really got to turn off the auto rotate here. So, getting down to the box office, and wouldn't you know it, it's already open. If I go to Box Office Mojo, which gets less and less reliable because it's run by Amazon, um, let me see here. F1 the movie topped the box office this last weekend, 57 million, above its 55 million projections. I saw this in IMAX in Waterloo, and let me tell you, um, the picture was good. The seats in the surrounding area were good. It was the worst audience I have ever seen. Two people in front of me took phone calls. They were both on their phones, but they were iPhones, so I'm sure the creator production company Apple Original Films who makes it, their CEO, Tim Cook, was thrilled that people were on their phones in the theater in the middle of the movie. I forever don't like that. I also noticed that a quarter of a second delay between, if I can see here, the visuals and the sound. And I wondered if that was because, oh, it's F1, they're using live microphones. You know, you go to a live event, you see them talking. Sometimes there's a sound delay, but this is a movie. So from my understanding, when you present a movie in theaters, and more people would notice it if it was a wide issue, but when you present a movie in theaters, particularly in IMAX, you have to hit the audio and video essentially at the same time. It's not one file, it's two separate things, and I think that they didn't get it completely right. But it wasn't so noticeable. It was noticeable for other people, but I noticed it. You can just, it's something you can feel. But I'm in the process of writing a review. I'm hovering between 7.5 out of 10 and 0 out of 10 just because there's stuff that I don't like about it. I don't like what it represents, really. It feels like a movie made for rich people and that tosses a few scraps to poor people. The story is so rote by Aaron Kruger, who was one of the Oscar-nominated people for the screenplay of Top Gun, which by itself is a solid screenplay, but you have three people who wrote that, who are credited writers. You have Aaron Kruger, who's like a studio writer. He also wrote Transformers 2. Um, yeah, which is one of the worst movies ever made. Um, and with Dumbo, which had all the pieces but didn't really quite work. He's not known for doing good work, especially on his own. But for them to take that guy from the writing crew of Top Gun Maverick and be like, yes, don't worry, we have this guy locked down. It's ridiculous to me, but it, worked out for them. So I guess good for them, not so much good for us because the story element I really thought was flat. Um, so it's basically about a guy named Sonny Hayes who's like NASCAR driver turned back into Formula One where he started before a crash kind of derailed him a bit. He's recruited by an old partner played by Javier Bardem to save his ass. And we don't really know who Javier Bardem is other than that he's Javier Bardem, and he makes a meal out of the few lines and camera reactions that he has in this movie. He has a perfect cornball delivery of "we have the driver," and some of his reaction and surprise faces are just golden. It's exactly what you hire the Academy Award winning actor for. So that's pretty good. But it's like the whole movie is centered on Javier hiring Brad Pitt, who doesn't care about the money. He lives in a trailer, um, to save his ass. And he's $350 million in debt. And so he doesn't seem too worried about it. And neither are we. Like he's worried and he mentions, "Oh, I'm in the hole" or whatever, and he's like, "The board is gonna fire me." It's like, "How can they fire you? You're the owner." And well, they say to him, "Maybe you need like a new board or whatever." Ha ha ha. But that's the most we get out of it. So the whole charge of the movie is just basically saying, um, "Hey, uh, let's." I want to make sure that this is recording, by the way. Still recording. Is it giving me guff? Because I'm gonna have to go in, and it appears to be recording, so that's good. Anyways, um, the whole impetus for the audience to get in is basically Brad Pitt is doing this as a favor to his friend who is rich to bail him out by just being him because he's the best and he needs a driver and he needs him to bounce out this one guy who's a new rookie and up and comer and stuff. The annoying thing is that the movie has sort of the attitude of like for the fans of like people of Formula One, but then when it comes to the specifics, it does a number of things where it's like, oh, Brad Pitt's a rebel. He doesn't play by the rules. He skirts, he breaks stuff. He breaks the car. He harms other drivers. He doesn't let them pass and stuff like that. But it does that so often that you're like, is is Brad Pitt's Sonny Hayes good at his job? And then the other thing is like the character played by Damson Idris, who I didn't know this before the in Formula One. It's a two-team thing. I thought there was more than two, but it's a two-team thing. So he should shoulder about half of the storyboard burden. But he doesn't, and I felt like, although he's good as an actor, he doesn't really. They don't make his part big enough to support a satisfying story. They just basically kind of use him as a prop. He has a mother who, delivers some, emotional lines about, don't hurt my boy. And he talks about, like, I'm not going to let an old timer, just pass me by out of, like, respect or something like that. But the movie doesn't really give him much to do other than, like, be a prop and have things happen to him. He's a pretty passive duotagonist. So as a result, he seems just kind of whiny, and I didn't buy his journey of like learning of stuff. Like he repeats a few lines that Brad Pitt says of wisdom. Brad Pitt's character doesn't change to me. That's fine. You can always have a protagonist that doesn't change, and maybe the world around him does, where he had some impact on the world, which in this case he does, and it's super predictable story, so that was easy to follow. Um, but yeah, the story is lacking. And the story usually always lacks in all of this director's movies. This is Joseph Kosinski, director of Top Gun Maverick. Maverick, of course, shepherded by Tom Cruise and his buddy Christopher McQuarrie. Um, so that got across the finish line. Only the Brave, which really felt like Top Gun a light. It's pretty good, but it has not a great ending. Just a bummer of a movie. And then you have Spiderhead, which was a made-for-TV Netflix film, which was written by Paul Reese and Rhett Wernick, and or Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. Sorry, they're comedy writers. They originally wrote Deadpool, and it has some elements to it, but again, the director being the signature author of the piece, not the writers, he fails to cohere the story. I mean, Oblivion, my sister's a big fan of Tom Cruise. We watched it and she was like, "How much of this is left? Because I'm ready to." And we skipped ahead. And I'd seen Oblivion before. And when we skipped ahead like 30 minutes to the end, I was kind of like, I don't know what significant story elements have transpired in that last amount of time. And it felt like nothing. And I had seen it before. And there's not a lot of story to Oblivion. It's adapted, I believe, by Joe Kosinski's own comic or idea. Um, so, I mean, it was good sci-fi for Tom Cruise to do at the time. Of course, it being blah, even though it has incredible production design, incredible looks, incredible special effects, good sound, good soundtrack, it the story doesn't carry it across the finish line. You even have pieces like Andrew Riseborough giving an amazing performance. So the story doesn't cut it there. And then his first movie, Tron Legacy, which I believe still holds the record for most expensive directorial debut ever, because the guy Kaczynski is a former architect and also jazz saxophonist. So he was wry enough to get Daft Punk to do the soundtrack, and it had a brilliant world design, doing a lot of stuff in camera. And the thing about Tron Legacy is that it has an amazing light cycle sequence, a very cool disc fight, but then the story pretty much stalls after the characters reacquaint with Jeff Bridges, and the rest of the movie is like boring. I've seen the light cycle race a bunch of times and stuff; those are thrilling, but everything in between is not that good. Just checking the battery, make sure everything's going still, and it is. So, anyways, that's Top Gun, and that's Joseph Kosinski. He doesn't quite bring the story elements out of the finish line, and he just needs all those elements to work. Um, Yeah, but you don't relate to the characters really that much. They're kind of generically drawn. Brad Pitt sort of seems reluctant to be here, of like, really? I'm still the guy? Okay, I guess, you know. He still looks good. He's perfect. It doesn't matter that, like, he's too old to be, a race car driver any more than Tom Cruise was too old to be a fighter pilot. But that's, again, fine. The actors are all good. I don't think they're all on the same page. Again, Brad Pitt has proven in the past with movies like Allied that he can kind of be uncomfortable being the main guy carrying the movie, even though he's like perfectly capable. I feel that he's just kind of like, well, okay, I guess this is a thing I'll do. And that suits his character well, but it felt like it was the first time where Brad Pitt has played Brad Pitt, the movie star, and he usually prefers playing Brad Pitt, the actor. And just as an actor, he wasn't given much to work with. So as a result, the movie is sort of a 7.5 out of 10, but as like a movie for like the super rich and stuff, like going to the theater, getting like IMAX tickets, which are expensive. I didn't, fortunately, didn't have to pay for them. It was a gift. Um, it felt like I was in the audience is expected to invest more for what is essentially a commercial for a formulaic movie for a super rich league that doesn't really need any more money. Like there is no underdog status to these people. It felt the same as Ford versus Ferrari and why that movie didn't work for me. And I wondered, it's like, well, race car driving has been around since the 50s. Like, for Ferrari, the movie, like I thought that movie sort of worked because even though the guy was like super rich and a mess, it delved into his psychology very deeply. So you related to him and empathized with Enzo Ferrari. With Rush, which a lot of people are comparing this movie to, um, and that is a movie. It gets into the head of champions of James Hunt and Niki Lauda and why they work and why they do what they do. One is just super very disciplined, and one guy's a party guy who's more than happy to die behind the wheel of a car. And that about the team of rivals and how they grow to respect each other is the movie's journey and really deeply appreciated. And it's surprising, has great and better cinematography by Anthony Dodd Mantle in Rush than than this movie does. And this movie cost maybe 200 to 300 million dollars. So again, it's 200 to 300 million dollars. You spend money to go to the theater for a movie that you probably, because it's Apple and on their streaming service like Netflix, you won't be able to buy when it comes out. Maybe Bruckheimer and then we'll change because this is different sort of for an Apple movie to go to theaters. They're experimenting with this, so hopefully they continue with it. Um, I would feel better if this got a physical release because it would be a great 4K to own. But Apple giving you a physical product that has value, I mean, we're a long way from the days of the iPod here. Every iPhone they introduce now, you know, is irrelevant after 10 years. I don't even know what iPhone was introduced in 2015. Maybe I can find out. iPhone 2015, iPhone 6. Uh, yeah, so if I go to the iPhone 6S, let's find out if it was discontinued or not. Da, 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 da. Yeah, I know its successors, blah, blah, blah. Don't care about rear camera, sound, connectivity. Hearing aid, don't care. Similar design. They do not support iOS 16 due to hardware limitations. So you're paying for an irrelevant product when you go to see this movie. Um, you're paying for something you don't get ownership of it. When you go see a movie, you have the opportunity later on to purchase it on DVD. And this movie kind of takes that away in a way that's uniquely corporate, uniquely capital, uniquely Apple. Coupled with, Squid Game, which I'll probably get to after I cover the box office. I just don't think the deal is great. It's a good movie, a good time at the theaters. If you just want to go see a movie in theaters and have a good time, you'll enjoy this. Just don't go see it in Waterloo, where the audience is horrible. Um, like seriously, multiple people were texting on their phone. It didn't like, and don't get me wrong, that happens in sort of every theater. But this was a opening weekend. Like usually, you wait till Cheap Tuesday, you wait a week later. It's like all bets are off. If you go see a movie in the premium theaters in opening weekend, like IMAX tickets are like $15 to $18, and you're going there to text, like I was so mad I was ready to stand up and say something, but I was with somebody, wasn't my town, which doesn't really matter, but I was like with somebody else that I usually go to, and I'm just like, it's only bothering me, I'm gonna let this go. But if I were there by myself or with my dad or something, I would have said something because I feel that my money was wasted. But again, the tickets were a gift, so you know, the person who paid for them didn't care. That's fine with me. So, moving on down the line. I'll say that F1 financially is a fully unqualified success because even though it costs 200 to 300 million, um, money for that company is irrelevant and it's a well-reviewed commercial hit. So, that's enough for them. Like Killers of the Flower Moon lost them money, but got them awards, which is all they cared about. So, if it's so sad that you're dealing with a company where essentially the box office is unfazed by it. Like Mission Impossible 8, The Final Reckoning is phased, but it's The Final Reckoning. There isn't one after. The movie was made, everyone got paid. Doesn't matter. If it were part of a series and they wanted to, and it got these results based on its expense, you probably wouldn't get another one. Similar to what's happening with Fast and Furious, it's taken a bit longer for them to rev up the engine for that one. But you know, um, this is Apple we're talking about. They're $1 trillion company. If this movie were to bomb, the worst that would happen would be they wouldn't release movies in theaters anymore, and then they'd try and work on their streaming service. If they couldn't do that, then eventually they'd fold down and stuff. But like a lot of dominoes would need to fall for that to happen. So, um, moving on. Um, number two at the box office, How to Train Your Dragon. Yep, it's a hit, unqualified success. Next was Elio, and Elio was a well-reviewed movie that went into turnaround and turned out pretty well. Um, so I have nothing to say. I look forward to seeing it, probably on Disney Plus. I'm sure it would be a good movie to take your kid to. But I know it's a problem with Disney with marketing their movies because it bombed. Right now it costs maybe 200 million. I'm not completely sure. But keep in mind with Disney movies, they include everything in that 200 million. So executive pay, marketing, overhead, that other companies don't. And it reviews well. It's just kind of like it's B team doing the best job. It's sort of like what people initially thought of Call of Duty World at War. It's like you saw the capabilities of modern warfare, and then you're just running it back. Um, but it's still a very good game, but it's not necessarily pushing anything forward, or at least for now that we think. And then zombies mode comes out and stuff. Who knows when Elio comes to Disney Plus, how people will react to it, but that feels like where its true audience is. But I'm glad that they're releasing it in theaters. Um, because why would you want to have to subscribe to a service to watch one movie? It's very annoying. Um, Megan 2.0, you can watch on Listen to the Town podcast, which I listen to frequently, um, of the creator of the production company that made it, of just like they were a bit overzealous on Megan, overestimated its appeal, and thus it bombed. But these movies are made cheaply that it doesn't quite matter. Um, I'm sure this movie will break even at some point, but and there's a spin-off still to be made, but it completely flopped compared to the first movie. The first movie opened to like 30 million. This movie went down to 10. So it lost two-thirds of its audience by basically taking a horror movie and making it Terminator 2. Number five, 28 years later, I saw this in theaters. It's crossed 50 million, 100 million worldwide. Good for horror. I'm sure it's on its way to being profitable. Horror usually always is. I saw this in theaters. Incredible direction by Danny Boyle. Coming off like a great teaser trailer that was so good, they added the song that was in the teaser trailer to the movie in a sequence, which is funny. Usually does not happen. Um, and it also won the Golden Trailer Award for Best in Show. Not that those awards matter. I've looked at some of them, and they gave the Sinners trailer, which I hated, overexplains, spoils everything. Um, a couple of awards, yeah, meaningless. But 28 years later, saw it in theaters. It has one of those exciting things going for it where you don't know how it's going. Like you don't know what's going to happen, what's going on. So that was exciting for me. It took a few turns that I didn't expect, and it even moved me emotionally, that I even cried. Although maybe I'm just getting to be a wuss as I get older. Um, the that's kind of all I want to say about it. I mean, you have the typical stuff, some wacky camera moves that are kind of distracting, some characters making stupid or illogical decisions or illogical plot points. That's usually happens in a Alex Garland written movie. I mean, I talked about Warfare briefly on air. I talked about Civil War uh, last year. Um, yeah, I've spoken enough about him, but they work well together in an entertaining movie, and it moved me. So I gave it 4 stars, which transcribes to like an 8 out of 10. Not sure if I'll write a review on it. Um, my focus is on F1, but yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Good time at the theaters. The next movie actually comes out 28 weeks from now in January. America, Martin Luther King weekend. It's like January 16th, and it's a sequel that they filmed back to back with a different director, Nia DaCosta, who did The Marvels, a movie so bad that I couldn't finish it. I got like 10 minutes in, and I'm why am I watching this? And that movie bombed so badly, it's probably considered one of the worst MCU movies ever made. Um, and but she also did Candyman, which was a good movie, but that might have been helped along by Jordan Peele. So this movie will be a good test for her. Will she just follow the template sent by Danny Boyle that sort of 28 weeks follows? Or is she going to do her own thing? Because these movies are produced independently and distributed by Sony. So it'll be interesting to see. Um, Yeah, it dropped 67% in its second week, so it's polarizing because there's some really stupid things that happen in it um, that are easy to go after. But, doesn't matter so much. Um, then you got Lilo and Stitch, again, unqualified hit. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Passing Dead Reckoning Part 1 It's at 563 million worldwide now, and it's going to run into competition from Jurassic World. Um, but it's close to passing, um, after passing Dead Reckoning, the previous movie, Part 1. In domestic, it's going to pass it overall. So, if it gets 600 million, it's kind of like an Aquaman 2 scenario of like, okay, well, 10 million more would have been a hit where we demand a sequel, 10 million less, and we would have, called it an out and out failure. But, half a billion and 63, it might get to 600 million, maybe 200 million domestic. Like, that's good enough for everyone involved. But again, Tom Cruise got paid. Who cares? I don't care. I'm not invested in the future success of Paramount, who, by the way, just paid essentially a shakedown by the Trump administration to settle bogus lawsuit that they could have won anyway. But basically, Paramount's parent company was being bought, and it was held up by the Trump administration. They say on independent terms, but it was basically because Paramount, the movie company, also owns CBS, the TV channel, their news division wrote they have a program called 60 Minutes, TV series that's been going on forever. They did a segment on Kamala Harris. They edited an interview where they used voiceover and pointed to footage of something else that had nothing to do with Trump, but Trump saw an in, went after it, and because he became president again, he held up the deal because if the more that it has to be extended to merge these two huge companies, the more expensive it is for both of them to continue operating. They have to pay extension fees or breakup fees, and apparently, based on their assets and stuff, like Paramount needed this sale, but the morally it's the wrong thing to do because it's a bogus lawsuit that they easily could have won. Everybody knows that, like, 60 Minutes didn't really do anything wrong. Everybody at 60 Minutes is furious. Everybody at CBS is furious. They donated 16 million to the Trump Presidential Library, which is the exact same thing ABC did. I'm pretty sure NBC at some point paid them something. So, it's a shakedown. But yeah, it's disappointing to see. Bernie Sanders even said that they would investigate it, because he talked about it on Joe Rogan. You can watch Bernie Sanders on Joe Rogan, and it's annoying to me as a watching person because Bernie Sanders is giving an example of corruption live on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan is just like not helping it at all. He's like, yeah, I don't know about that, you know. And Bernie, the old man that he is, can't really remember it. And in my head, I'm like the nervous student. I'm like, I know all the details. But yeah, you can watch that on there. I think his point was still made. Uh, but it's interesting. You can tell Bernie is an important guest, so it reached out on there, but Joe Rogan clearly rides for Trump. So, because they're friends, similar sensibilities, that kind of thing. I would liken Joe Rogan to basically a modern day Oprah. Oprah gave us Dr. Phil, she gave us Dr. Oz, you know, the people who are basically television frauds. So, like, Joe Rogan is kind of the same. And most talk shows are the same. The people of guests of Maury Povich or Jerry Springer weren't the most upstanding citizens. It basically became a carnival. So, that's basically what Joe Rogan is. There could be an elevation wherein, if somebody were to invest in him properly as a platform, he could be a bigger, more influential deal, reach out to more people. But I don't think he wants to do that. He's just happy with the money. Um, so, moving past that. Materialist I saw, I won't get into. Cross the 30 million threshold for a distributor like A24. That's a win. Ballerina Suffering. It's made about 55 million, just 105 worldwide. I don't think there'll be a sequel to it. They might do maybe another John Wick spinoff if they're lucky down the line. But Lionsgate wanted this to work so much so that they wanted to promote Keanu Reeves in it, and in order to promote Keanu Reeves in it, he was doing other stuff at the time. So they had to wait for his publicity tour to be free so he could do the publicity and help promote the movie. And as a result, they had to move it to June. Had it come out in spring, it probably would have done better. And instead, it like just got run over by Mission Impossible and took a bit of its audience. And Tom Cruise helped promote it too and stuff. But yeah, tough stuff. Karate Kid Legends, I mean, I'm not sure. I wouldn't call it a hit, but it doesn't cost much, so who cares? It's just another also ran by Sony. Final Destination Bloodlines again, unqualified hit. And then I'll just get down to uh the theater release. There's a movie called Sorry Baby. I saw the trailer for it, can't remember, can't recall. In the Mood for Love got a re-release. People love that. I believe I studied it. Yeah, I would have studied that, not Chungking Express in film school. It's just people love it. Two neighbors form a strong bond after both suspect extramarital activities from their spouses. However, they agree to keep their bond platonic so as not to commit similar wrongs. It's directed by Wonka Wise, considered like a cinematic classic of the 21st century. I believe it even appeared on New York Times list of 100 best movies of all time, which is absurd of an absurd list because Interstellar is number 5, and there are plenty of things I like in Interstellar. But like plenty of things that go wrong in Interstellar. Like the ending is kind of gobbledygook. It has some illogical decisions by characters, like Wes Bentley, like just kind of chilling while a giant tidal wave is happening. Why? Because the screenplay needs them to be gone in the next scene. Um, you have Matt Damon's character being randomly evil. I wouldn't say randomly, but it's like, oh, he's gone space crazy. Okay, you know, um, that, and then you have, that's a bit of a push, and then you have kind of a ridiculous fight between them, which is back when Nolan couldn't shoot, like Nolan improved as a director. You can see on Tenet the action is pretty solid, and going forward, it's something he's grown better with his chops as the best directors do. But like that fight scene is embarrassingly bad. And I rewatched it a couple of years ago during the pandemic, thinking this movie's going to be amazing, and it wasn't. It was just as kind of whatever as I thought before. I'm willing to look past, all the third act, fifth dimension stuff because that like connects the story back. The issue with that movie is just that like the Casey Affleck plot line of Tom, his boy, is just like completely neglected. The movie doesn't have room for it because it has a whole bunch of stuff going on and it just kind of reaches for the sky. It has the humanity of like that Jonathan Nolan has, which is kind of funny because he's wasted time making TV shows about robots that go on too long. Um, but him working with his brother, they balance each other out. And it would have made like a great Spielberg movie. But and it kind of represents a turning point in Spielberg's career too, him not taking that movie on. But anyways, Interstellar is just I have problems with it. I think it's like too ridiculous and collapses a bit under its own weight. But because there hasn't been a movie as big of it, as galactic as it in size and scale since, people gravitate towards its gravity. Um, and though people like it. Um, let's not forget, by the way, just going forward, that like this movie was a big hit at the time. Like it made $675 million on a $180 million budget, which was huge. It like it got quite a few Oscar nominations and stuff, so it wasn't like overlooked. It's just grown in appreciation over time. It was never number one at the box office because Big Hero 6 opened, similar to how Barbie was never, or Oppenheimer was never number one at the box office because Barbie happened. So, don't let people be like, oh, it wasn't appreciated in its time. It was. It's just people saw it for what it was. And what's happened in the time since is that good movies haven't been made. Um, since I'm on the subject of Christopher Nolan, I wanted to mention that his latest trailer is out, The Odyssey, and apparently leaked online. But like all the trades reporting that it leaked online without linking to it. So you can't really see that it's online. You go to YouTube. Oh, Odyssey trailer leak, and it's people talking about the leak, not showing you the leak, which is just like, what are you reporting on? You're just telling me a sentence, and that's just the state of journalism and Hollywood journalism these days. Um, what are we getting to? We're at the 35-minute mark. Good. So, yeah, that's pretty much the box office, and I will give you my report here going down the line of my Letterboxd profile. So, what have I watched since? Okay. Am I going to connect? Film activity. If I get down to, I saw The Surfer, I saw Le Mans, Deep Cover Ballerina. I like somebody. I just want to see My Diary. Like I don't care that I like someone else's thing. Okay. So, my last one was on the 17th. I think The Surfer was the last one, so I'll just go. I saw Le Mans, 1971. Le Mans. Um, anyway, it does the same thing surprisingly as F1, and I thought, oh, so all the stuff that F1 was talking about being the first movie putting inside the car, they kind of did the same thing on Le Mans in '71. So it made F1 a bit less impressive to me, but if you watch the behind the scenes, Brad Pitt talks about Le Mans doing the same thing. So, it's it's whatever. I found it really interesting. It's much less talk, way more efficient. It's interesting. The first 25 minutes, there's like no dialogue spoken. It's just Le Mans starting its engines. So very impressive. Deep Cover is like Amazon shovelware Prime Video movie. Has few laughs to it though. So, something to fold laundry to. That's what they want. Ballerina. Um, I enjoyed has a grenade fight and a flamethrower fight, which I'd never seen before. And because it showed me something I've never seen before, remember I watch a lot of movies, it was something I've never seen before. Real flames with anadarmus. That's like a safety thing you got to be really careful about. It was a thrilling battle worth the price of admission 100%. I can overlook all the story, like it has a F1 style 7 out of 10 story, but that fight was cool. That I enjoyed it almost more than even the submarine stunt. So that was cool. And then I watched Echo Valley, which is Apple TV shovelware. Um, what I like about it is that Kyle MacLachlan comes in, does one 30-second scene, and is out. Like one of those great one scene performances. You're like, when's this guy going to show up again? And you're like, oh, he doesn't. I guess that makes sense. But it's like bizarre because it's set up as like Mom, I Killed Somebody by Sydney Sweeney and Julianne Moore. They spent some time together. And then it settles into being a movie about Domhnall Gleeson, who's like the guy that Sydney Sweeney's dealer, and like it's a movie about them, about Domhnall Gleeson and Julianne Moore. And Domhnall is like actually great, and I don't really like him that much, but he's playing, a shit heel, which he plays well. And you're like, okay, well, the movie's about this, and then you look at the writer, and it's Brad Inglesby, and it's like, okay, well, generic crime drama checks that box and stuff. But like, is the movie worth your time? No. 2.5 stars. Um, I decided to watch Decision to Leave, um, crime drama, South Korean, really well regarded. Did not live up to his reputation for me, but was thematically very strong, sort of quasi romance, but I found a problem with the structure. I found it too long. I think it overextends. Its reach exceeds its grasp, but it was a solid movie if you don't mind reading subtitles. Snow White, 2 stars. This movie affirmed that Mark Webb, the director of Amazing Spider-Man 1 or 2, is not a good director. If you look at the crew of Snow White, they assemble like the best people in the world. Gal Gadot as the evil queen, to me, good casting. The only one who's not good casting is Rachel Zegler as Snow White, but she does fine. They wanted somebody, I guess, edgy, like that was their in of like, what if we cast somebody who's not white, as Snow White, or somebody who's, race is a construct. They're like from the South. or Dominican. It's like, okay, that's the big thing. I get why they didn't cast all little people as the dwarfs, but the movie is kind of unsightly. The story is crap, and the director just doesn't make any interesting decisions in that movie. So, you know, kind of a waste of time. Would not recommend Snow White 2025. And I found the original boring too. So it's like, it's not like it was a sacred movie that could have done a lot with. It's a groundbreaking visual masterpiece, the 1937 Snow White, but you needed a groundbreaking visual masterpiece to remake it, and they didn't, which is why the visually very interesting Snow White and the Huntsman is a better movie. This just kind of did the same thing except softer, and it's just like a waste of time. Um, I then saw a Minecraft movie finally, which is the best reviewed movie of, or sorry, best reviewed. No, it's not. The most profitable movie, highest grossing movie of this year. And it's like a 2.5 star, straight down the middle adventure play. Jack Black carries this movie on his back. It has some funny jokes in it, but it's not a very good story. Cinematically, it's not very good either, but I like all the people involved, and I understand if you're a kid watching it that you'd love it. Um, so, you know, it gave you something about Minecraft. Minecraft for me came out when I was in college, so I played a bit of Minecraft story mode because I'm a story guy, and I couldn't afford or didn't want to spend the money for the rest of the episodes, so I just kind of let it die on the vine, and I think my story got deleted afterwards. So I'll have to check. My Xbox 360 is due for an update, so maybe I'll update it and see if my save file is there, and maybe I'll even continue. But then I can't record it, so you know, the problem with gaming in the modern day, and for me is as a content creator, if I can't record it, did it really happen? Um, we finally get to 28 years later. 4 stars, I'll just read the review. Very important and timely film about how difficult it is to book a doctor's appointment. A very British tale about colonization that conveys smartly without dialogue while avoiding the pitfalls of most Alex Garland scripts. Danny Boyle's direction makes you forget about some silly elements. Uh, yeah, there is a part in the movie, in theaters, where I was so immersed, you forget that you're watching a movie. I haven't seen that since Rise of the Planet of the Apes, really. Um, I guess it happens more as a kid. Um, but you get so wrapped up in the story. Now I'm like constantly conscious of like, oh, the heat, oh, this, oh, the guy down there in front of me is an asshole. That kind of thing. It's very rare nowadays that I watch a movie and I'm like, because I feel movies have stopped trying to immerse you in their own world and everything's like, if it's an IP grab or a sequel, it's like, okay, I know this. Like, you're trading off another movie. So yeah. Then Urban Cowboy. This I gave 2.5 stars. Awful story, but good acting, setting, and soundtrack. Hard to taste lower. That's a misspell. I gotta change that. Hard to rate. These auto predict texts are so not the way. Um, hard to rate lower. Okay. Hard to rate lower. Because it's so original. It's basically about a bar. Um, a guy who's a cowboy from this somewhere small town moves to Pasadena, Texas, and basically falls in love with this girl who he doesn't treat very well. Like there's some domestic violence in this movie. The movie does not apologize for it. That alone is kind of like negative to the story because even if you wanted to go with it, it's the characters don't really reach an equilibrium. But the soundtrack is solid. It is well photographed. It's just basically Saturday Night Fever again in a different setting. Um, Fertile ground for a remake, 100%, and just very original. I had no idea what was about going in. Turned out to be about nothing. And I thought that the script writers must have been like, "Oh, our bad guy really isn't even that bad. Let's make him a worse abuser than John Travolta's character going in." So there's that. Um, if you watch Saturday Night Fever, it's much in the same way, but it doesn't have the oh my god amazing dance sequence, and it doesn't have the Bee Gees. Um, this movie lacks that sauce. Saturday Night Fever is not a good movie, but it has an amazing soundtrack and an amazing end dancing sequence. So makes you forget of all the domestic violence and assault that happens throughout that movie. Can't recommend it though. But watch watch it. It's culturally significant. Saturday Night Fever. Um, I rewatched Deja Vu. I started watching a movie, which for whatever reason I did not clock on here. Hmm. So I'll do that. Um, I did not clock. We Are What We Are. That's what I was missing. Um, because I started watching We Are What We Are on Tubi. My brother came in and was like, "Hey, why are you guys watching this? It seems boring. Let's watch something else." So we pick a movie that's great that we have both already seen, and then he starts to watch it, gets 40 minutes in. Hey, this is pretty good, but I'm going to bed. And then, changes the movie, leaves. And then we finish watching the movie. I'm like, yeah, this is like a great best time travel movie ever. It's my favorite time travel movie. 4 stars. Um, Seen it a bunch of times. And then he leaves. Next day, I rewatch my previous major 5-star movie, Taylor Swift: The Eras Tour, Concerto Perfecto. I wouldn't have paid those concert ticket prices or the 1989 to see it in theaters, but watching this suggests it would have been worth it. I'd already seen it before and given it 5 stars. I talked about it on this blog. Justin Willman, Magic Lover. This is basically like the format of a stand-up special, but him doing magic. Not many people are a better showman than magicians. Funny, timely, and great use of modern technology and methods. 4 stars to this guy. He has a TV show of like, tries to be like David Blaine Street Magic. Does not have the juice. Uses a lazy camera fakery where I'm like, they did it this way. They're using strings. The person is mic'd up before. No way. Doesn't make any sense. Um, that kind of thing. When you do those hidden camera things, you need subtitles, you need lip readers, you need to mic up the person and have them get close to the person. Um, it You can just tell how people behave. And this was the street magic one was too funny. However, this stand-up special, Magic Lover by itself was good. And I'll add We Are What We Are, which I'll speak about now. I guess out of 5 stars, I would give this movie, available on Tubi, about two 2 stars. Now, it's a boring movie. Not much happens in it. The acting is whatever. But the director, Jim Mickle, who did a movie that I like called Cold in July, that if you ever see Cold in July, and you're a guy, just watch it. It's a good movie. Watch it with my dad. We both enjoyed it. Um, I would say because Jim Mickle had such control of tone in this movie, We Are What We Are, like just a masterful control of tone. Quentin Tarantino speaks of this of like, if you feel you're in good hands, you won't accept it. I felt like I was in good hands, even though not a lot was happening. But I was like, hands are shaking, family seems weird, you know how I always say if nothing happens in the first 15 minutes of the movie, nothing will happen at all. Well, something happens in the first 15 minutes, so it respects that. It has good set dressing. It has a young Wyatt Russell. It has a young Julia Garner. It has a character actor, Michael Parks. The rest of the cast, not so strong, but you're kind of like, okay, well, I'm willing to. It has my attention for the whole movie. You bought the whole movie for me. So you watch it, and it has an ending, which makes some sort of sense but doesn't tie up every loose end, and you're like, okay, I see why this is not a bigger movie. Uh, I also see why the director went on to do better things like Cold in July, like Stakeland. If I look up what else Jim Mickle did, because I would think that he's on the up and up. Like even though this is from 2012, like Julia Garner before Ozark. Uh, so if I can look at this, and he did, oh yeah, Sweet Tooth. Um, that's the show that he did. And when did that series end? Is what I'm wondering. Uh, da, 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 da. Because I remember during the pandemic, I watched the first few episodes and gave up. But because it was like June 2021, second season 2023, and the third final season. Uh, announced the following month, premiered in 2024. So it was like last year. And so that was like a series which people really liked. Like, huge hit at the time. It's funny to think of on Netflix because it's like I hadn't even thought of it until now. And, it kind of has no cultural impact. Um, uh, anyway, first season, 97%. Uh, blah, blah, blah. I don't care what the details are. Second season, 86%. And it's like more mature but still suitable. Sweet Tooth is blah blah blah. Third season 93. Closing out before it grows too long in the tooth, this richly imagined family series remains grossing to the end. So it ends strongly, but it's just basically about a kid with reindeer head, antlers, and he goes on an adventure in Fantasyland. Interesting, but it's like you'd have to pretty much have the whole series lined up. And even then, I didn't make it because it's like a half-hour premise stretched to an hour. But anyways, this guy is successful. He knows what he's doing. Was able to get me through a boring movie. But if you're not working in a specific genre, or you're working with a low budget, it's enough to be a calling card, but not enough to be good. But yeah, I have to add that to my list now. But I'm close to the end of my Letterboxd diary, so I'll just finish that because after F1, which I just wrote, a movie that will push you to the edge of anti-capitalism. Um, I watched last night Heads of State. Now, 30 minutes into this movie, I was like, this is dog crap. It's another Amazon Prime Video movie that I opened with Deep Cover, Amazon Prime Video movie last month. You probably already forgot that I mentioned it. Also stars Paddy Considine, who was on House of the Dragon. He's the king that dies. Um, he also plays the bad guy in this, and it looks like, again, halfway through, it's like, was this guy even in the same room? Deep Cover does a better idea of finding out who this guy is as a person. But anyways, the first 30 minutes I'm like, this is dog crap and it's not funny. But then now I don't know if this is my bias, but I looked it up. I'm like, okay, who's behind this movie? Like the director of Taken? Turns out no, it's the director of Nobody and Hardcore Henry. So I'm like, okay, like this guy still has something to prove. Like he still might be on the up, in terms of his career. And then I'm like, oh, who's writing it? Oh, Andre Nemec and the guys who wrote Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't think that that script is terrible. Like, it's not amazing, whatever. And then Ben Davis, that guy's just like a working British cinematographer and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, well, why, MGM is still like, this is an Amazon Prime movie, but it's operating on the engine of MGM, which is like one of the oldest movie studios. And then I'm like, John Cena is good doing his thing. Idris Elba is good doing his thing. Priyanka Chopra had just done a crappy, I'm not sure if it's an Amazon Prime, I think it is, or an Apple TV series for the Russo brothers. That was like a very expensive miss, but she's physically credible in this. And Jack Quaid shows up, which kind of lets you know that it's a mid movie, honestly. Like the Jack Quaid hype was like this year, because every movie he's been in has been like a straight to video movie. Um, I know Companion went to theaters. I know Novocaine went to theaters. They still feel like straight to video movies. Um, and he's not really that funny in this movie. And the movie doesn't really need him, but it's like this movie does a few things where it's kind of like, all right, let's shift the focus off of Idris Elba and John Cena. Um, I watched it partially looking at my phone. I will say some of the action sequences are legitimately thrilling, but the story is so that it the more it embraces comedy, the more successful it is. The director is good, the writers are decent, the crew is fine, but their goal is to make a movie that pleases everyone, so it is generic and has no cinematic value. At least it stopped me from feeling bad about watching it. There are some movies that are so competently blah that they make you drift away from your mind enough to think like, what am I doing with my life? This was this was enough to make me stop feeling bad about watching it. I remember the third time I played through the end of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, I felt like I was legitimately wasting my life. But this was sort of that. But it was like, okay, there are just enough laughs here that it feels like something. But I'm feeling I'm getting to the low on gas for these generic action movies. I don't think I can make it through the Ice Road 2, which came out barely released. Um, Patty Considine is 2 for 2 on Amazon Prime Video bad guy action comedies. There you go. So I'll do that and I'll add We Are What We Are to the list. And I think that is what gets me to the end of this podcast here because I talked about movies. Still struggling to find partners in Rainbow Six, which just underwent a massive change. Siege X added a mode that's only available on next gen, so I'm getting close to, looking at what is available for me for next gen. And it's going to be just as expensive if I get a PlayStation, unless I get it used if I get an Xbox or if I get a PC. So maybe I'll look for used PC or something. But then that means I don't know what to do with my own PC. I want to move out before that happens. So in terms of games, I have Resident Evil 3, which I rented from the library. That was a game I wish I had when the pandemic came out. Doom Eternal was another one of those. So yeah, we'll see. It's on this that I have the spot here. What happened here? Did I hit my knee? Probably on furniture. But yeah, that'll about do it for this week. I have a lot going on unrelated to film or games. So on Monday, I have a job interview um, for a data input thing. um, I'd be happy to have that job because it'd be a full paying job. And then on Tuesday, there's a city council meeting. Sunday, some people are visiting. And then Friday, I have a dentist appointment. So I'll be a changed man next time you see me. So take care. Thanks for coming to the Film Gamer podcast.